A Journey Worth Taking, or Joyriding with Hank. I left school at 16 with low aspirations and even lower self-esteem. My only real interest beyond BMX bikes and skateboarding was rock music. While my contemporaries bought electric guitars and emulated their favourite heavy metal axe heroes, I'd always be drawn more towards singers' words in song and on the pages of music magazines. At turns rebellious and cripplingly shy, I would often find myself alone in my room next to the mono radio cassette player listening to albums by Queen, The Mission, Led Zeppelin, Sex Pistols, Metallica, The Cure, Marillion and Hanoi Rocks, an eclectic taste if ever there was one. In September 1988, when I was 18 and at a very low ebb, I was idly flicking through American skateboard magazine Thrasher and saw a black and white photograph of a very angry-looking young man covered in tattoos and snarling into a microphone. That man was one Henry Rollins, who for half a decade fronted US hardcore band Black Flag, and after its demise formed his own Rollins band. I knew nothing about him, but had a vague recollection of the name Black Flag from years earlier at school. I read the magazine's interview with Henry and was struck by how uncannily the outsider opinions of this very single-minded American former punk rocker chimed with my own difficult adolescence and frustrated sense of alienation. Henry had been keeping a journal for a number of years, very candidly documenting life on the road and his ongoing battle against depression, and had self-published some of the writing. I immediately felt compelled to seek out one of his books, which in the late 80s, before the advent of the internet, wasn't easy. I was put in touch with a book search company who managed to track down a title that could be ordered from Compendium, a shop on Camden High Street in London. I sent them a postal order the same day and waited. Less than a week later, a Friday evening after work, I opened a small envelope to find a 72-page book called Henry Rollins Talks, which was basically an extended interview with a journalist called Robert Fisher. I read the book in one sitting that evening and was profoundly moved by the honesty and drive of this uncompromising figure. I realized that I needed to take action and decided to weed out all trivial activity from my life. Fired up by the enthusiasm of Rollins for authors such as Hubert Selby Jr., Henry Miller and the legendary Charles Bukowski, I began to devour autobiographically based fiction at a considerable pace, making weekly visits to Waterstone's bookshop in Newcastle and joining the dots from one author to the next. But it wasn't until late 1989 when I actually got my hands on Body Bag, the first volume of Rollins' writings published in the UK, that I saw something similar to my own state of mind reflected in the prose and verse pieces printed in bold block capitals within the plain red covers of this dark and direct volume of angst. Immediately I saw a possibility to acquire writing as a vehicle for self-expression. Henry Rollins was the first person to show me that I didn't have to be a singer or an actor to use my voice effectively. I didn't require a university education in order to put pen to paper and have my words taken seriously. I didn't have to understand Shakespeare to be a poet, and I didn't have to write conventional short stories or a novel either in order to have a work of fiction published. I didn't have to be a doormat for those deemed smarter, stronger, more intelligent, charismatic and competent than me. Everyone has a voice. Henry Rollins helped me find mine by planting the idea in my head that a guy who worked in a warehouse stacking shelves and packing boxes could, by sheer force of willpower, transcend his social and academic limitations and cut a path through the forest of adversity. If I hadn't been a skateboarder, I wouldn't have picked up the skateboard magazine and discovered Henry's work. If I hadn't been an outsider who found the spark of inspiration to make a new life for myself, one quite different to the life I was expected to be satisfied with, well, I don't know where I'd be right now. It probably doesn't bear thinking about. Call it serendipity. My life has been one long string of serendipitous moments. From Marvel superhero comics to rock music to skateboard magazines and a hardcore punk rock vocalist's raw writing to my own published book and the privilege of being able to inspire others to pick up a pen and convey their own ideas and experiences. Writing is therapeutic. Fact. It doesn't have to be a published product. It can be a personal healing process. It can be a coping strategy during difficult times. But it can also open doors to new worlds of opportunity. It gets me where I need to be. Henry Rollins didn't have a degree in English literature. He never went to university. He worked in a pet shop and an ice cream store before seizing an opportunity to get on stage with one of his favourite bands when they played his town. Now, without a band of musicians as a safety net, Henry fills theatres all over the world, telling true stories both harrowing and hilarious, a man with a microphone and an inquisitive mind. Ironically, he is a far better public speaker than writer, sometimes flat and verbose on the page. He is a whirlwind of wit and wisdom on stage, speeding along on a sea of simile and metaphor, a motor mouth fueled by the desire to communicate and make a difference. And that's what it's all about. If you can make a difference in life, if you can affect change into the benefit of others as well as yourself, then it is a journey worth taking. Henry Rollins helped me to become the person I am today. Henry Rollins is a catalyst for change, a real motivator. He is an inspiration to many, a real hero. Steve Irwin, Consett, County Durham, England.